Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us at 6 p.m. on a Thursday. So let me start with talking about the code of conduct. We will be recording this video and it will be uploaded on our Samayu YouTube official channel. So a little bit of code of conduct here is to keep respectful engagement so that we avoid any form of discriminatory or offensive language. Please ensure your background is appropriate if you're switching on your camera. Keep your microphone muted when not speaking to minimize background noises. We will take Q&A at the end of this session for 10 minutes, and you can ask the questions in the chat. And if you have any feedback after the session, you can reply to us on our email where you receive this registration. And again, thank you everyone for joining in today. Without further ado, let me start by talking about Samayu. So Samayu is an NGO. We are registered in Delhi, and we are here to transform India's food systems, cultivating a future where all beings thrive. We drive a transition towards a climate resilient, plant-forward society, ensuring no community of humans or non-humans is left behind. So at Samayu, what we're doing is we also aim to drive change in farming practices, cultivating plant-forward consumption and reshaping policy and public consciousness. By collaborating with key stakeholders, we envision a future that values animal well-being, promotes sustainable agricultural practices, and advocates for healthier dietary choices. So about today's session, we have a campaign called Food in You, and through Food in You, we are conducting these online programs for general public. At Food in You, our overarching objective is to connect with millions of individuals across India, addressing the necessity for a dietary change. Initially, we engage with consumers, then institutions as well. We aspire to instigate transformations in nutritional guidelines, leveraging the influence and expertise of subject matter experts. Currently, our impact have reached 3.6 million individuals across India through our 12 strategic partners across, and we have received around 40,000 pledges for our dairy-free challenge. We have done across 91 events in India across 12 cities. So this is about Food in You, and again, welcoming everyone. I would also like to welcome Niranjana. A small introduction about her. Niranjana Iyer, a dynamic speaker and the author of the recently published book, Plant-Based Recipes and Mindful Approach to Life. Her transformative journey is a testament to the profound impact of adopting a balanced plant-based diet. Overcoming health challenges, including weight gain, pre-diabetes, and menstrual distress, Niranjana's transition resulted in shedding 14 kgs in just 13 weeks and experiencing remarkable improvements in endurance, performance, and overall well-being. Through her book, Niranjana aims to educate and empower individuals and families on the benefits of a plant-based diet, offering valuable insights for the long-term health goals. So here we are in our second Ask Me Anything session with Food in You. Niranjana, please go ahead and share about the work you have done.
Hi, Anushree. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be on this platform. And it was a wonderful introduction that you have done on Samayu. I think it's very important to educate more and more people about a plant-based diet. So I will explain more on a plant-based diet and how I got into it. So generally, there are people who go into a plant-based diet because of understanding the cruelty and the malpractices that are in the dairy industry, how cows are treated very poorly, not just in killing them for meat, but in dairy. And this is something which has been led in the carpet a lot with the media in the previous decades, but now because of a lot of awareness and consciousness of the plant-based and various different kinds of communities that promote this, it's becoming more in the limelight. There are various different kinds of people who go plant-based and switch to a plant-based diet because of health concerns. I have always supported the plant-based community for several years, but I had this hesitation to give up my dairy and give up my eggs. In fact, I have been following a plant-based diet from the beginning of April of this year. And previously, I was someone who really indulged and loved eating dairy and loved eating eggs. And I felt because of the feeling of taste, I did not want to give it up. However, because of chronic health conditions, and I could see that I was going towards pre-diabetic, I was gaining weight, in spite of me exercising and not having a very unhealthy lifestyle at all. I just had this thing of feeling that a vegetarian diet with eggs is very nutritious, it's high in protein, it's got all the necessary vitamins. But now, with understanding what has been going on with my system, I realized that's very contradictory advice. So I'm going to be explaining more on the nutritional and factual information about a plant-based diet. So when we refer to dairy in general, dairy comes under saturated fats. There are three different kinds of fats. One is unsaturated fats, saturated fats, and trans fats. Trans fats are the fats which are highly processed. They're your junk food, the deep fried food, your alcohol and things which are not healthy. The ones which you get in fast food restaurants or deep fried things, and your salty potato chips, your deep fried pizzas and like that. That comes under trans fats. When we refer to saturated fats, it refers to your maida, your sugar, your cured meats, your processed meats, and dairy comes under saturated fats. And the thing with dairy, especially products like milk and curd, which are obesity and other menstrual disorders as well. It can also lead to problems like heart issues, heart attack, hypertension, and high cholesterol as well. And when we refer to two classifications of food groups, we have inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods. Inflammatory foods are foods that cause inflammation in the body, and dairy is one thing which comes under inflammation foods. When I refer to inflammation, I'm not referring to inflamed skin, bruises, or blisters on the skin. Inflammation can happen within the body in the cellular structure. That could be having ulcers, that can having gastric issues, acidity, and chronic issues like having a tumor and having cancer and so on and so forth. So dairy is actually a leading cause for issues like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, and menstrual issues like dysmenorrhea, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and so on. One might argue that the main reason for these issues is having a very poor lifestyle. But that is definitely a cause, because if you're having a sedentary lifestyle and you're not opting for any physical exercise, there's no option to do any movement or to do any weightlifting or training or yoga, these things can happen. However, there are so many studies, and I have seen this a lot in women, is that women who are health conscious and they eat healthy and they follow a specific diet, they do some form of physical exercise. They either go to the gym, they do weightlifting, they do yoga, they do hatha yoga, they do some form of movement, or they dance. And they make sure that they're moving at least like 3 times in a week, or they try some movement. But in spite of that, they are having issues like endometriosis, dysmenorrhea, problems in their menstrual cycles. And I have actually was one of them. But one thing which I realized is the main factor is overconsumption of dairy products and consumption of eggs. And the main reason for this is that when we are consuming the milk products from cattle, we have to understand that cattle are also mammals, and they secrete hormones just as women secrete hormones. Like when we talk about we women as human beings, we secrete estrogen and progesterone. Cattle, they secrete similar hormones to like estrogen, progesterone, but it's obviously the hormonal balance of cattle is very different from a human being. And when we are living in our cities and metropolitan cities, big cities, when we consume your Tetra Pak milk, even if it has labels of organic milk and so on, and it says rich in calcium and whatever the marketing thing says, it's still milk that has come from processed factories, which means you're not just getting the milk which is from a cow with their hormones, you're also getting the steroid hormonal injections that are being given to cows for them to produce milk. Because ultimately, biologically, cows are meant to produce milk for their calves. And just as we women, when we give birth and we have children and we give breast milk, we have enough breast milk to give for one child or two children. And it's not more than that. So similarly, the cows, they're naturally supposed to give milk for their children. That is their calves. But as we humans are conditioned in society, we are very dependent upon animal sources of production and animal food sources. So what happens is these steroid hormones are injected in a very big volume for us to receive that milk. So not only are we receiving this milk, but we're also receiving the steroid hormones that come into the milk, which is not mentioned in any of the dairy companies. They do not mention any of this. And it's more of a marketing trait. So a lot of women in specific struggle with this because we think that by old and contradictory messages of what we received by previous people or on the internet, we're just programmed and conditioned to feel like, okay, milk is filled with calcium, it's not bad for you, you're not killing an animal technically, so what's wrong with having dairy? But there are a lot of implications, one being that dairy is high in saturated fat. It comes under the inflammatory category, which can cause chronic issues, and not just chronic issues, even issues that hamper your quality of life. I can give an example. There's a condition called the gastroesophageal reflux disorder. And this issue is relating to the gut, the gastric issues, and acidity issues. So I was somebody, I guess from the age of 20, I struggled with acidity. It's like I have to eat something at least every 2.5 hours. The moment I'm hungry, I will start having migraines. I'll have to eat something immediately. 1 second. Sorry about that. So I had to eat something immediately the moment I would feel hungry. I would not be able to keep my hunger for a long period of time. But when I was told by a specific nutritionist, 5 days of going plant-based, I got rid of my acidity. In just 5 days, I could experientially feel that my acidity was getting reduced and it was a lot more better. So I could find so much of use in that. And for me to lose 14 kgs in 13 weeks, of course, it was rigorous strength training. I got in touch with a personal trainer who's an amazing coach. His name is Soham Sangvi. He's from Chennai. And I was weight training with him and I was doing personal training sessions. But of course, it takes two things. It takes exercise and it takes nutrition. But because of removing the eggs and removing the dairy from my complete system over a series of 9 months, I was able to lose a lot of body fat because my consumption of saturated fats was very low. And then I relied more on my green leafy vegetables, my dals, my pulses, legumes, soy products, products like tofu, tempeh, green peas, protein sources, and various different kinds of plant-based sources of protein for my vitamins, for my carbohydrates, and I started having more fiber in my diet because fiber is a rich source of calcium. And I noticed that there was a sense of aliveness, a sense of alertness. I did not feel very lazy. So generally, sometimes if anybody has had curd or curd rice, if you have a little bit of that, your body tends to feel a bit lazy. You tend to want to take an afternoon nap. You become a bit more lethargic, but my energy levels, my strength levels, my performance levels, they skyrocketed when I switched to a plant-based diet. Very recently, I went to a program which is very similar to Vipassana. It's a silence program. And for that, I had to be in a plant-based diet because that specific organization feels that consuming dairy can cause a sense of lethargy in the body and sleepishness. And for those programs, you have to be in high alert and you have to be awake. It's a long program of yoga. And I was volunteering for that. And the program was in such a way that I had to be doing intermittent fasting for a long period of time. This was for about longer than what I would do. So I usually do intermittent fasting for 6 hours, but I was supposed to do intermittent fasting for 8 to 10 hours. And knowing how I used to be, I would be like, no, I cannot do intermittent fasting. I'll have to carry like a packet of biscuits or some crackers or maybe a box of dates to like nibble on every time I had hunger pangs, because the food I wouldn't get to eat whenever I wanted. I couldn't get to do all of those things that I wanted to do. So because of the periodic pattern of following a consistent plant-based diet, I guess for the last 9 months, I was able to do intermittent fasting for a long period of time. So my cravings reduced. It wasn't the aspect of us being disciplined and not going towards the cookie jar or not going to the kitchen and getting your, favorite snacks or opening your cupboard and getting your favorite junk food or something. It wasn't about discipline. My body stopped craving for snacking and even alcohol, for example. Of course, all of us like to indulge in occasional drink once in a while, sit with our friends, have a glass of wine, have a glass of beer and stuff like that, which is perfectly fine. But system, in terms of the way I felt internally, I didn't crave for such things. I stopped craving for sugar. I stopped craving for, even when I go with my friends, I don't feel like ordering a small pint of beer or like a small glass of wine. Those cravings and those compulsions just started to reduce, and I just felt so good my system just felt so good in going through a plant-based diet. And I would, highly recommend, in terms of health, that people who struggle with conditions like type 2 diabetes to go through a plant-based diet, because knowing the statistics in India and knowing that India is one country which has a huge population which are struggling with either diabetes or pre-diabetes, there are misconceptions towards it, and people are taking a lot of allopathic medications that have a longer way of getting rid of diabetes and actually going to the natural source. So when we refer to type 2 diabetes, it refers to low levels of insulin production and insulin resistance. When we have dairy, it contributes to insulin resistance and doesn't improve the insulin sensitivity. However, when you switch to a plant-based diet, that is, you don't have your animal sources of food, you will have improved insulin sensitivity and improve your insulin levels, and thereby be able to reduce having the consumption of dairy and get rid of diabetes in the long run. So to get rid of such diseases, especially if they're hormonal or if something's related to type 2 diabetes, it's important to go to the root cause. And that root cause is how our bodies have been conditioned for a long period of time. Very often people think that it's just your lifestyle, it's maybe unhealthy habits like excessive drinking and excessive smoking or excessive eating of sweets. But that's not entirely the case. It can also be conditions of having dairy on its own, because dairy is rich in very high saturated fat.
Great. Thanks, Niranjana, for giving a brief about the plant-based diet and what it means, and also your journey and your observations in terms of switching to a plant-based diet from a vegetarian diet. So I would also like to tell the audience that Shubham right now has posted the links on chat about Samayu, about Food NU. So please feel free to go to these links. At Food NU website, you will find resources, and I would also humbly request you to take a pledge to try a 21-day dairy-free challenge. In the meantime, Niranjana, I would like to ask you some questions during your transition. So in transitioning to a plant-based diet, how did you ensure you maintained a well-balanced and nutritionally adequate diet?
So before I turned plant-based, I was in contact with nutritionists and I was working with a specific fitness coach. And when I was working in that nutrition doc, I saw this very easy pattern about a balanced diet that refers to having a specific portion of protein, carbohydrates, and fiber. But this applied to non-vegetarians, vegetarians, but there was no aspect of vegan in it.
Niranjana, you're frozen. Niranjana, can you hear me?
So I was a bit more confident in going for just a regular vegetarian diet with eggs. However, what happened is that I went through a very unexpected medical condition called dysmenorrhea, which means very difficult menstrual cramping, which results in hospitalization, having injections, because the pain is very similar to labor pain of what a pregnant woman goes through. And that was very surprising for me to. Is my screen frozen?
Yeah, now it's better. Now you're back again.
Okay. So that was a bit of an eye-opener because I didn't know. I thought, let me take a bunch of scans and let me see what's going on. But, touch wood, and the good thing is there was really nothing going on in terms of any chronic issues or something.
Niranjana, you're frozen again. Can you hear me?
Thing to get out. Contacted nutritionists. I did a lot of research, and then I kind of understood about the hormonal aspects of having dairy and having the steroid hormones injected into cows. And I guess maybe most probably that was causing the issue. But it's so amazing to know that within 8 months of going plant-based, I don't longer have that issue anymore. Of course, like every woman, we go through pain, but it's not as extreme and troublesome of what I have been, because I've literally been in hospitals. I've literally been on wheelchairs because of this pain. But to get out of it wasn't taking a lot of medication. It wasn't going and taking all of this. It was actually just omitting dairy and omitting eggs and being consistent with it. The results did never happen in a month, and I'm not going to tell anyone it's going to happen in a month, but in a series of months, let's give it 5 or 6 months, the results were just pretty amazing. It was just immaculate to like feel so. Is the screen clear?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay.
Great. So thank you for answering that question, Niranjana. Really insightful. I completely agree with you. It's been 9 years since I turned plant-based, and my health is much better than it was before, especially after I stopped diet on meat and dairy. I did have some allergens as well, and allergies, and somehow it came to a zero. I think it has to do with the lactose in the milk and the way the milk is produced right now in the industry, because it's mostly very intensive agricultural system that we have compared to what we did before. So moving on, I would like to ask you, have you noticed any changes in your immune system's resilience since embracing a plant-based lifestyle?
Definitely. I have experientially over the last 9 to 10 months, I have not fallen sick. That is, I've not had a fever. I've not something that has kept me in bed rest at all. But before I was plant-based, I did get COVID twice. And I was hospitalized. But after, I know COVID is something which is not spreading, or it's almost non-existent right now, but I've not had any fever or disease which was related to like maybe something like dengue or malaria. My immunity is pretty good, but that's also not just because of a plant-based diet. It's also because of exercising, making sure that I've been weightlifting, doing strength endurance training. And another thing which I want to mention is people who are, athletes, or people who are coaches or weightlifters, because I'm a weightlifter, you don't have to depend upon animal sources of protein for your muscle building and recovery. Because if I am somebody who is able to do a deadlift of 26 kgs, and was able to do a RDL of 25 kgs or a bent over row of 20 kgs, I've been doing it just by a plant-based diet, and I'm stronger than ever because of just a plant-based diet, not that I'm having some eggs for it. So there is a lot of information in nutrition, but I feel like when people experientially try, maybe invest in plant-based sources of protein when they want to get for their workout or exercise, I think then they'll experientially understand that you don't have to depend upon dairy and egg sources for your nutritional requirements.
That's correct. Thanks for sharing that. I also have another question for you. Could you share some practical tips for meal planning on a plant-based diet, especially for individuals who are new to this lifestyle?
Well, I guess it's more of mentally wrapping yourself to not having dairy, because when you're so conditioned to have dairy, it will feel impossible to give it up, especially when you don't have health issues. What I've seen is majority of people who go through plant-based diets, especially the ones who are not going plant-based because of animal cruelty, when they go into plant-based diets and they're relatively healthy, they will not want to give up maybe cheese, or they'll want to stick into butter, or they won't have milk, or some people are even allergic to peanuts, they can't have peanut curd. It's important to know that there are various different kinds of dairy alternatives. So it's not that you're giving anything up, it's that you have a variety of different options. There are various different kinds of nut-based and plant-based milks, nut-based curds. We have different kinds of plant-based cheeses in the market. I think it's even like India is booming with various different kinds of plant-based cheeses. Various different kinds of cheeses are now plant-based, which is so amazing to see in the market. Plant-based curds, milks, plant-based ghee is also available in the market. So there are various different kinds of alternatives which are not expensive. And in terms of sources of protein, there are a variety of sources of protein or sources of calcium that you can get. So it's actually trying to know that it's not that you are giving up or being restrictive in having your favorite foods. You can enjoy your favorite foods, provided you don't get them from animal sources. You can get them through plant-based sources.
That's right. For the audience, I would also like to tell you that we have shared our website, foodanew.com, and just like Niranjana suggested, there are so many vegan and plant-based options out there that in the recipe section, you can see some of them. You can try it at your home. We have all kinds of plant-based milk, curd, cheese, all of the recipes mentioned on our website for free. And there is also a guidebook there. And this guidebook, you will be able to find in nearby restaurants, which are completely plant-based. You'll also be able to find different brands in India, which are completely plant-based. It includes cheese, curd, milk, mayonnaise, you name it. There are all kinds of alternatives in the market. So do have a look at our website under the guidebook option. Thanks, Niranjana, for that. Beyond the immediate benefits, what are your long-term health goals, and how do you plan to continue integrating plant-based living into your lifestyle?
Well, I recently told myself that there is just no turning back, because once the body is so conditioned into a plant-based diet and it's working so well for me, I don't see any reason for me to turn back eating dairy, especially when I have seen such a transformative health experience. If I can just share my screen, I can actually just show you the health transformation that I've gone through, just for people to have a better understanding. I've gone through a health transformation, not just because of the way I was exercising, but a lot to do with the way I was eating. And if you see the transformation of fat loss, it's very evident that there is a very different way of how I was dieting, and that was primarily getting rid of eggs and dairy. And I was someone who was very overly dependent of eggs, and I just went through contradictory advice that, eggs are a great source of protein and it's really great for weight loss and fat loss and stuff like that. But then I saw that even though I started my journey into fitness, I was gaining so much of weight, and I realized the main culprit was having abundance of saturated fats. So to answer your question, my long-term health goal is to just be consistent, and just ensure that when I am weight training or I'm doing any functional training movement, I am doing it in a balanced way that doesn't result to me burning out or be doing way too much or excessive of it. But keeping my weightlifting or my functional training very consistent, at least I do it 3 times a week, whether I'm traveling or whether I'm, at home or wherever I am, I ensure that I get my workout done. So just being consistent and just keeping a watch over it, really does a lot of things in the long term run.
Great. Thanks, Niranjana. That was my last question. So now we open up the Q&A for the audience. We are at 6:34 now. 6:40 is where we end this meeting. So please do post any questions if you have on the chat box. I would also like to tell you that Niranjana's book is available online. Niranjana, can you share the link of your book so that the audience would know where to go buy it?
Yes, I will share it.
There is a question now from Kuldeep Rajpurohit. He asks, how about using whey protein?
Well, whey protein does have milk solids, and if you are trying to adapt to a plant-based diet, there are various different kinds of plant-based sources of protein, which is verified. It is clean. It doesn't have any additives or sugar or anything unnecessary for the diet. So I would recommend, if you are going to a plant-based diet, to switch to more plant-based sources of protein, which has a good levels of protein in it. And I think that will definitely help you for your long-term weight loss goals.
That's correct. Hopefully that answers your question, Kuldeep. Also, I would like to add that plant-based protein is actually clean protein, so that you don't get any other, unnecessary chemicals like hormones,
Yes.
like cholesterol and trans fat. So if you're having something
Yes.
that's completely from a plant-based option, you are escaping cholesterol, trans fat, and that would actually save up on your other health complications. So Niranjana has shared her link there on her book. So if anybody's interested in the audience, please go ahead and have a look at it. Great. I don't see any questions coming in. So we have another 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Anybody else for a quick question? Great. Then if there's no question, I would like to ask another question, Niranjana, if you don't mind.
Sure, please do.
So beyond physical health, how has adopting a plant-based diet influenced your mental well-being, focus, and overall mindset?
It's definitely made me a lot more calmer, and it's made me less anxious. So the thing is, there is a big connection, a good relationship between the mind and the gut. So gut issues don't necessarily stem from unhealthy eating habits or eating things which are high in saturated fats. It is also about how the mind is, the fluctuations of the mind, mental health, moods, and things like that. So when I got rid of having eggs and dairy, I saw that I'm a lot more calmer, I'm more relaxed. I don't have that agitation, to feel like I need to eat something for my acidity. So acidity and mind are like, the mind and gut are very related. So just by going through that, and of course I meditate, and I have a very holistic approach to health where I do meditation. So that really plays a very big role in confidence. And intermittent fasting in general can make a person more relaxed. So I encourage those, and I know a lot of people want to do intermittent fasting, whether it's for weight loss or if it is for religious reasons. People fast and they are not able to fast because they say one thing is acidity. And I'll tell you, I am the biggest survivor when it comes to acidity. But when you get rid of such components of dairy and eggs, you're able to do intermittent fasting for a long period of time. And because I switched to a plant-based diet, I now notice that my alertness has improved. My productivity has definitely improved. I'm able to focus for long periods of time. I don't have that urge to snack and things like that. So those are also, great ways to boost a person's confidence, make a person more relaxed, make a person more calm as well. Because when we talk about hormones, they don't just.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have less than a minute. So before the video ends, I would like to give a vote of thanks. Thank you so much for attending today's Ask Me Anything session. It's the second time. So hopefully we'll do more sessions with you in different modes. And thank you so much for being present here. And I would also see that we have three participants left. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We definitely had a good time. I would send the feedback form after the session. So please feel to give us a feedback and tell us how to make this better, how to make these conversations better. So again, thank you so much, Niranjana, for taking your time and being present here.